working on this portion, number 3 up to here, the first one. And some student may say, hey, what information here? Actually, this is the requirement, first portion, first sentence of requirement number 2. Lookup feature is just kind of reminder. Don't forget this one. Detailed elaboration actually went to here. CRSID and SID for grade table. So if this is okay, I'm going to continue with the next requirement. This one, the fields. And also I put description here, 0 or between 1 and 4. The term is 1, 2, 3, or 4. This portion is the terminology is what we call the domain integrity. Okay, so now the grade attribute in grade table. We just worked on the first one, SID and the CRSID. And for those two, we were working on lookup feature. The third one, we have to come back to general. We are not working on lookup feature, just the general. General case, we are looking for the validation rule, this one. Okay. And just type in the information. Let me show you what information to type in. And then I'm going to explain that later. Type in the information first and explain that later. Type in the information in my case, in 0 or between 1 and 4. Okay, that's the information we are going to type in there. Validation rule for grade. And this one will be the validation rule for term. So that's just how to use this information. So let's type that in. So first, make sure you choose grade attribute, and under general tag, and in the box of validation rule, you are going to type in 0 or between, double check, 1 and 4. Okay, take a look. I cannot make it bigger, but this is what we are going to type in 0. 0, put 0 in parentheses. Or between 1 and 4. Between 1 and 4, put them in parentheses. Another set of parentheses. I put a domain integrity here, indicating if we add the validation rule here, we try to ensure the domain integrity. What does that mean? This means in the future, after we applied this rule, put the rule here. In the future, whatever the information you entered to this field, it has to be either 0 or any number between 1 and 4. If you put a 0.5, the system will say, hey, you violate the rule you set up. If you put 4.5, it will show the warning again. You violated the rule. Why do we set up this rule at the very beginning? Because at this moment, this is a great information. If we use Auckland University previous system as an example, the grade has to be, number grade has to be 0. Even though nobody likes to have that one, that's one choice. So you have to count that situation. And other than that, should be between 1 and 4. 1.1, 1.2, 1.5, 3.5, 4.0, but no 4.1, no 0.5, 0.6, no those kind of values. Right? To ensure whatever the value you enter is valid, that means we ensured the domain integrity of this attribute. And this is how. This is how. Now, this portion, right now, I'm going to say, well, just copy this one. You know how to interpret that. That will be sufficient because same idea, different database management systems. The way of doing this will be slightly different. For Microsoft Access, we simply put the use the functions within Microsoft Access and then organize the function in this way to fulfill the requirement. Make sure the information you entered will be either 0 or between 1 and 4. The high-level concept is what we call the domain integrity. What does that mean? Basically, we try to apply this rule to make sure in the future, whatever the information you entered as a grade has to be 0 or between 1 and 4. Letter entry does not count in this case because we specify this as a number data type. If you want to include those letter grade, you have to consider this differently. Right now, we are taking easy case, only numbers. Once you make this, save it. And this message will show up to make sure because you have some information there. And some of the existing information may violate the rule. That's the message it says. Okay. And you say, yes, you want the consistent to be tested, you can say yes, and it will test. You save some time, you can say no, but I'm going to say yes. Make sure current data set still satisfy the requirement. Save the work. Any questions for this one before we move to the next one, term? I'm looking for the chat room, and also sometimes I forgot to check the hand. If some student raised hand, I may overlooked, so I need to double check the participants portion. And also I'm going to turn off my video so that it will save some room. Okay, no hands. Okay. Now, before we test the next one, we can come back to our datasheet view. Now I can resize this for our testing purpose. Make this a little bit smaller. I want to see the grade information. Now I want to test. If I want to change the grade information, I remember this one is 3.6 because I don't want to change the original data, but I do want to do a test. Okay. So I want to change this one from 3.6 to 4.6 on purpose. I know based on the rule, 4.6 is not part of it. Okay? Because from grading system perspective, we don't know how to interpret 4.6. Could it be 3.6, 2.6, 1.6? Could it be 4.0? We don't know. Okay? But at least check this one. If I say enter this information and then say, oh, that's my new grade. So I go to the next field. Now the message showed up. Okay. One or more values are prohibited by the validation rule because, hey, you said the value has to be either 0 or between 1 and 4 in the grade tables, grade attribute. Now, all of a sudden, you put 4.6, we don't know how to interpret that one. Okay, so at least the rule works. Only things, this message is not that intuitive for first-time users. For us, we know because we designed this. Okay, so we click OK here, and I change it back escape press escape key, it will go back to the original value. It will go back to original value. Press escape key on your keyboard. It go back to original value. If no, type 3.6. Now go back to design. And a moment ago, it shows whole thing. Now the improvement could be validation text. Validation text. You type in or put it this way. Just put in this way, maybe not reasonable, not that rude, right? We simply indicate the greater value is wrong, or it's not right. About the same, right? It's not valid, put in this way. Maybe more professional. Okay, now save this. Now we can check how this portion works. The grade value is not valid. So we go to data sheet view again, use the first one as an example. We change it to, this time we test 0.6. 0.6. And now you see the grade value is not valid. People start to understand, oh, okay, this is for business people or for users. The previous one is more for developers. So in a sense, this message is better, more interpretive to users. You know, oh, okay, 0.6, why this is not valid? And then you say, oh, okay, makes sense, because 0.6 is not we don't have 0.6. So they can figure out that they can change. So we press escape key to exit from here. Okay. So up to this point, we tested one, this validation rule works. The second one, we learned how to use validation text. And this portion, if you leave it blank, it will show technical terminologies. If we say, well, we try to make the design more user-friendly, we provide the kind of business information here, so that people, whenever they see the message, they know what kind of action they are going to take. Okay, so validation rule and the text. If you don't put this here, no point of deduction, because that's not part of the requirement. But since you are here, demonstrate that one, you will be able to design a more user-friendly interface for this application, if you know how to use the validation text. So any questions for the first validation rule? Overall concept is domain integrity. Only make sure the values for this attribute is in the valid pool. And you can bring this in to double check what the requirement says and how do we operate this one. Requirement says in the grade field attribute of the table, the acceptable values supposed to be either 0 or between 1 and 4. Okay. The validation rule I put here for reference, future reference, is this one. Okay, let's move on to the next one, term. That's a description. Basically, we are checking the 5th digit. And the formula we are going to use is MID function. We introduced this briefly and then put them in exercise number 5. Basically, we are going to pick up, in this case, we are going to pick up a substring from a main string. And this main string is the term information you enter in that one. And the way we are going to take the substring, we are going to, basically that's the last digit. Last digit in this case